Hi, I'm Garth Drinkwater from Small Business CGT Concession Specialists. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the active asset test. Particularly, I'm going to talk to you about the relevance of the active asset test, what the active asset test is, what constitutes an active asset, and how the test is applied to shares in companies and interests in trusts. I'll start with the relevance of the test. The active asset test is one of the basic requirements that must be satisfied by an entity to gain access to the Small Business CGT concessions. If the active asset test is not satisfied, then the Small Business CGT concessions should not be available. I've just talked about the relevance of the active asset test. I'll now talk about what the active asset test is. The active asset test is applied to the relevant CGT asset. A CGT asset satisfies the active asset test if, in broad terms, the asset is an active asset for at least half of the entity's ownership period of the asset. Where the asset has been owned for more than 15 years, the asset only needs to be an active asset for at least 7.5 years. The ownership period begins at the time when the entity acquired the asset and generally ends at the time of the CGT event. I've just talked about what the active asset test is. I'll now talk about what constitutes an active asset. A CGT asset should be an active asset at a particular time where the entity owns the asset and it is used or held ready for use in the course of carrying on a business that is carried on by the entity or the entity's connected entities and affiliates. Also, intangible assets should be active assets where they are inherently connected with a business that is carried on by the entity or the entity's connected entities and affiliates. However, there are some exceptions regarding which assets can be active assets. I won't cover them all, but in general, the main exceptions include firstly, shares in companies or interests in unit trusts unless those shares or interests satisfy specific tests which I will discuss next. Secondly, financial instruments including loans. And thirdly, assets that are mainly used to derive interest, annuities, rent, royalties or foreign exchange gains. I've just talked about what constitutes an active asset. I'll now talk about how the test is applied to shares in companies and interests in trusts, and in particular, units in unit trusts. There are two main requirements that need to be satisfied for a share in a company or a unit in a unit trust to be an active asset at a particular time. The first requirement is that either the company is an Australian resident company or the unit trust is a resident unit trust for CGT purposes. The second requirement is that the market value of certain specified assets of the company or unit trust are 80% or more of the market value of all the assets of the company or unit trust. Those specified assets include underlying active assets, financial instruments inherently connected with the entity's business, and any cash inherently connected with the entity's business. So that's it for this video. If you'd like to know more or get in contact, head on over to our website. Hi, I'm Garth Drinkwater from Small Business CGT Concession Specialists. I hope you've been enjoying our videos and the information we've been sharing. If you are interested in knowing how much you or your clients could save with the Small Business CGT concessions, we've recently added a calculator to our website. You can find it at sbcgt.com.au. And if you're interested in finding out more, feel free to get in contact.